Hey guys, Creator Mom. I want to share a passage from Pam Laricchia's book about unschooling. Maybe this video won't apply to you, but I feel like unschooling is deeply about more about life, not just school per se. But anyways, so here we go. It's chapter 9 and it's called Accepting Our Nature, but I'm going to read under this section. And the book is called The Unschooling Journey, a Field Guide. So the section is The Nature of Temptation. Looking back, there were many days when life was exciting and wonderful, but they weren't all that way. There were days when my mind was replaying the almost utopian unschooling life I fantasized about when I first began learning about unschooling, while our actual days were stubbornly following a different script. And when I was stuck in my mind movie and things got challenging, sometimes I'd experience the pull of temptation to step off the path. We were far enough away from our old lives that I'd feel a twinge of almost nostalgia for the seeming relative ease of doing things the same way as everyone else, with parents in control and children learning according to the conventional timetable. Maybe the challenge was sibling arguments. Why can't they get along? Wouldn't it be easier to just send them to their rooms? Maybe it was a child immersed in a previously controlled or limited activity. Why won't he do other things? That can't be good for him. Would it be better if we insist that he does something else for a while? Or maybe it was a child's learning. Is she really learning anything useful? Maybe our child is different. Maybe she won't learn the important things without being taught. At first, we want to ignore our growing frustration with the situation. We keep ourselves busy with other things, and maybe we find ourselves biting our tongue more and more often. Still, ignoring things does not work for long. The challenges seem to follow us around, confronting us at every turn. This isn't the way things are supposed to go. Surely things should be getting easier by now. Why do things seem to be going off the rails? We work so hard to get here. Once we can no longer ignore the issue, we feel exposed. Sure, everyone else can see it too. Then the fear of being judged a failure has us quickly looking around for someone else to blame, passing responsibility around like a hot potato. It's not our fault, we rationalize. Maybe we're tempted to blame the experienced unschoolers we know, who made their lives seem so wonderful. Obviously, they aren't sharing what goes on behind closed doors. Or maybe the temptation is to blame our children's friends for bringing enticing things like video games into our lives. The neighbors are the bad guys. Maybe we've even been tempted to blame our children, explaining to ourselves that our kids are more difficult than most. Experienced unschoolers must have kids who are easier to manage, who easily go along with whatever comes up. In time, our frustration grows into fears, and soon we may be sorely tempted to declare the journey a bust, quit unschooling, and retreat to our ordinary world. But do these frustrations and fears really mean we aren't cut out for unschooling? Maybe, maybe not. Certainly doing battle with our inner demons is hard. In fact, we find ourselves here. It might help to remind ourselves that inner challenge like this is so universally hard, that the temptation to turn back has its own stage in the hero's journey. We are not alone. Then she goes into the temptations of Buddha. She uses mythological tales to draw this parallel. I'll read it. The temptations of the Buddha. As is common with mythological tales, there are many different versions of the story surrounding Buddha's encounter with the demon Mara, but details aside, it speaks well to temptations that try to lure us off our path. Siddhartha Gautama was born in the 5th century BCE in what is now Nepal and grew up a sheltered prince. At the age of 29, he decided to leave the family palace and for the first time encountered human suffering. He met an old man, a sick man, a dead man, an ascetic, a monk who renounces material and physical pleasures. These events eventually become known as the Four Sights. Soon after, Prince Siddhartha, deeply troubled by the suffering he saw and curious about the monk's happy and peaceful demeanor, left home and undertook a spiritual journey as a wandering ascetic. He studied with renowned yoga teachers, learning all he could from one before moving on to the next. He also spent time practicing rigorous asceticism through strict physical discipline, including near starvation. Yet he felt enlightenment still eluded him. Then, recalling a time when, as a young boy, he had experienced a deep peace in meditation, he realized that there was a middle way, a path between the extreme self indulgence of his youth and the extreme self denial of asceticism. It was through the discipline of the mind. After regaining some strength, Siddhartha Gautama sat cross-legged beneath a sacred fig tree and began to meditate. As he strove for enlightenment, purifying his mind through concentration, a demon, Mara the tempter, appeared, determined to thwart his efforts. It is said that first Mara brought his 3 beautiful daughters to tempt Siddhartha away from his work through the pleasures of the flesh, but he was not swayed. Next, Mara brought forth armies of demons, trying to provoke Siddhartha's anger and break his concentration. But as they attacked, the power of his concentration turned their hurtling weapons into flowers, which fell harmlessly to the ground. Finally, Mara challenged Siddhartha's claim to the seat of enlightenment and demanded proof that he was worthy. In response, Siddhartha touched the earth with his right hand, and the earth itself spoke on his behalf, bearing witness to his claim. And with that, Mara and his army disappeared. Having weathered Mara's temptations, Siddhartha sunk even deeper into his meditation. In time, the meaning of all things became clear, and he realized enlightenment, becoming Buddha, the awakened one. Feeling great compassion for humanity, he shared his understanding of the 4 noble truths and the Eightfold Path to end suffering and gain enlightenment. This practice became known as Buddhism. Accepting ourselves is our awakening. This is crazy because I just made a video yesterday about accepting ourselves as a New Year's resolution instead of like becoming a new self, accepting yourself. Anyways. One of the important insights in this stage is the realization that even though we may try to blame others for our discomfort, our frustrations are really about us and not them. The particular set of challenges that we meet in this stage to tempt us to abandon our journey will be unique to each of us. They are the demons that we personally need to conquer on our own journey, meaning they'll keep confronting us until we can no longer ignore them. So as Mara attempted to distract Siddhartha away from his path with companionship, we too may be tempted to distract ourselves by keeping busy so we can avoid sitting alone with our frustrations, temptations, and feelings. We might also find ourselves tempted to view our challenges in terms of conflict, a perspective Mara tried to elicit in Siddhartha. When we see things through the lens of conflict, judgment, and blame, When we see things through the lens of conflict, judgment and blame become tools of choice, and our fears push us to protect ourselves by blaming others. And as when Mara demanded proof of Siddhartha's claim in hopes that he would abandon his journey, we too may fall prey to the voices in our heads demanding we prove unschooling is working. Maybe we're tempted to exert just a bit of control, cajoling our children into doing a couple of worksheets just to prove that they are learning. If we fall prey to these temptations, we are stepping off of our unschooling path. Granted, it's not the end of the world if that happens. It's much like landing on a snake in a game of snakes and ladders. You slide back in your journey and have some more work to do. Temptation wins for a while, but it needn't mark the permanent end of your journey. It's worth the effort to figure out what happened and get back on the path. It's living and learning and growing. I mentioned this is hard, right? So where can we find help on this stage? Altogether now, our guides, which are our children, she mentions in this book. Most definitely. So often we see patterns more clearly in our children than we can in ourselves. Those conventional voices in our head continue to hound us if we give them the slightest opening, and feeling tempted to give up on our journey is just an opening. But in my experience, they aren't so loud when it comes to my children. When I pay attention, I saw them wrestling with challenges, fears, temptations to quit on their learning paths, and it didn't take me long to realize that those moments were all valuable aspects of their journey, not things gone wrong. And eventually, I was able to extend that kindness to myself. These are the fallen logs on our path that lead us to discover the beautiful river running 30 feet away through the forest, where we can quench our thirst and rest for a time quietly within ourselves. I came to understand that the feeling of temptation to stray from a quest or any quest was not failure in me. I realized that the point wasn't for me to get strong enough so that I would never be tempted again, but to understand that these moments are part of life of being human. And from there, I could more quickly and compassionately recognize them for what they were, messages about me and for me, so I could do the work to move through them. I came to accept all facets of myself, the confident me, the fearful me, the tempted me, and no longer judged them as good and bad, but saw and accepted them as part of my nature. Living mindfully. With time and experience, I learned to recognize these moments of temptation more quickly, and I found my most useful tool was the idea of living mindfully. To me, that means being curious and paying attention to what's going on around me, letting go of expectations and the need to control things, becoming okay with discomfort, noticing my feelings of resistance to some things and urges to do other things, and appreciating the many things around me that I'm grateful for, big and small. When I stopped judging myself for having these moments of fear and temptation, I also stopped trying to distance myself from them by blaming others, and eventually I was able to sit with my discomfort for a while. Discomfort became maybe not my good friend, but definitely not my enemy. In her book, The Wisdom of No Escape, 2001, by Pema Chodron, an American Buddhist nun, wrote, quote, "Our neurosis and our wisdom are made out of the same material. If you throw out your neurosis, you also throw out your wisdom." End of quote. But if you don't throw out your neurosis, your frustration, fear, and discomfort, what do you do with them? How do you discover the wisdom that is tangled up in there? Maria Popova, 2015, founder of brainpickings.org, expanded eloquently on Chodron's intent. Quote, "Holding one's imperfection with gentleness is not the same as resignation or condoning harmful behavior. Rather, it's a matter of befriending imperfection rather than banishing it in order to then gently let it go rather than forcefully expel it." As I sat kindly with my unease, I learned what I could about myself and the roots of my needs and desires, what was behind my fantasy mind movie, and then gently let go of the leftover bits I no longer wanted. The pieces that didn't mesh with the person and parent I wanted to be. Sitting with discomfort to discover what to let go. I remember back when my 3 children were ages 10 and under, and with them now home all day, their boundless energy was in turns amazingly beautiful and overwhelming. Keeping up with them was both inspiring and exhausting, leaving practically no time for anything else, including things I wanted to do. I would also hear messages to moms, especially of younger kids, to take time for themselves. It seemed to apply precisely to my situation, yet it didn't feel good to me either. I was stuck in that feeling of overwhelm and growing frustration, not seeing any way through it to the other side. So I sat with my discomfort. As I dug into it, I found that I felt like I could never get a break, that it was all kids all the time. I felt like I was a mom all the time and didn't have time to be me. When I found that thought, it seemed like I was finally getting somewhere, that I'd caught a glimpse of the root of my discomfort. I kept digging. Why are mom and me 2 different things? Am I a different person when I'm with my kids? Is mother a role I'm playing? I'm thinking of my life as divided into 2 slices: time with the kids when I meet their needs and ignore mine, and time with the kids when I meet my needs and can ignore theirs. And I keep looking for time without the kids so I can finally meet my needs without actually leaving the kids. No wonder that wasn't working. Once I found the root of the issue, the two thoughts that were at odds with each other, I could figure out which one was really true for me. What kind of parent do I want to be? I don't want to be a parent that feels she needs to escape her kids to be her true self. I want to be myself even when I'm with my kids. I don't want to view mother as a role I play. It is an integral part of me. And my needs, the things that nurture me, also are an integral part of me. That meant that the thought that wasn't working for me, the one to gently let go of, was that I needed time without the kids to meet my needs. Right. Sweet. I understood where it came from. It was a piece of parenting wisdom that I'd come across regularly. But now I knew that it was yet another piece of conventional advice that I wanted to release. When I understand my why, not only can I brainstorm ways to address the root of the issue, I can more quickly walk myself through it, and more probably when this issue resurfaces. Remember, this isn't a battle to judge, overpower, and eliminate parts of ourselves. It's about accepting that these ups and downs are part of our nature. And learning that with understanding, self-awareness, and knowing the tools that work for us, we can move through these down moments with much more grace. And then without the constraint of the belief that I need to find alone time to fully be myself, needs included, the possibilities opened up. I realized that this separation between being me and being a mother was actually being fed by the conventional presumption that being a full-time parent was second-class work. You'll be bored spending all day with your kids if you don't turn off half your brain and look forward to time away from your kids to replenish the real you. See how they feed each other? I thought I valued my work as a mother before this stage, but now I understood it at a whole new level. Once I decided to bring my full self to each day without judgment, I found so many real reasons why I would choose to get on the floor and play face-to-face with my children, to take them to the park, to make messes with them. I also started looking for ways to share and nurture other aspects of myself while being with my children. For me, sometimes it was suggesting puzzle games, my favorite kind of game, or reading a magazine nearby as they played or watched TV, or reaching for an almost meditative state during repetitive activities, like pushing a swing or separating Lego pieces. A candle lit in the kitchen while I tidied or prepared food, a light nap as they were engrossed in a movie, a walk around the block, giving us all new things to look at, including me appreciating the neighbors' front gardens and maybe picking up some ideas. A quiet coffee and a book for half an hour before the kids woke up. The whole me is always there, and these activities were re-energizing. It's kind of like finding your joys in the moment, you know. I was no longer desperately looking for alone time to replenish myself. I brought all of me to my days with my kids, and when I wanted time alone or with friends, I arranged that, not as an escape from them, but as a part of being me. When I was the mom and the person, well, yeah, it's like if you're spending time with your kids, but you're like all the while waiting to do this other thing, like that can suck. When I was the mom and the person I wanted to be at the same time, my days became more expansive and I felt more fully myself for the first time in a long time. Undercurrent of joy. In this stage, we learn to accept rather than fight our nature. We move beyond judging ourselves so that we can mindfully move through these moments of temptation, learn what we can, and continue on our journey. And it doesn't stop there. In this deeper acceptance of myself and the resulting freer flow of our days, I discovered an undercurrent of joy returning through our lives, like a subterranean river flowing beneath all of our experiences and through all of my different states of mind. This is yet another aspect of the flow of time we discussed in this last stage, another aspect of the nature of being. This more expansive lens of time inspired another shift in my perspective on lifelong learning. Learning is not the work of childhood. Learning truly can happen at any age. This was a deeper level of understanding I found in the unschooling truth that children are always learning. It grew to humans are always learning. As my fears faded, I realized that in the grand scheme of things, most unpleasant, distressing moments aren't as dire as they first appear. I found I could be more present with both happiness and disappointment in those moments, as Maria described, without taking an internal roller coaster ride because I no longer equated the deep, longer term sense of joy I felt inside with the emotions of the moments I was in. And I discovered that my joy was rooted in knowing more deeply that I was in control of my life and no one else. I was free to make the choices that made sense to me without judging myself. And there I was, back full circle. Looking back now, I realized that I instinctively understood the immense value and beauty of our days once I discovered that undercurrent of joy, long before I discovered the concept of the hero's journey. I know that because way back in 2004, 2 years after the start of my unschooling journey, I incorporated it into my website name, Living Joyfully. I'm going to end it there.